Everyone, what's up? It's another Cinematics episode, but this is a Cinematics mini episode courtesy of Eric Holmes. Eric Holmes, you interviewed this week a couple of filmmakers for our Cinematics universe. First up is Brian Skiba for Gunslingers, and second will be Pat Collins for That They May Face the Rising Sun. First off, with Brian Skiba, what can you tell from your just recollection of the interview? I remember you talking to him about Westerns and if they're fading or not. And and you've interviewed Skiba before.
Basically just talked a little bit about that. So Nicolas Cage is in Gunslingers, and I've always been curious because we all know that when you walk into a Nicolas Cage movie, you're not always exactly sure which Nicolas Cage you're going to get.
Sure.
Unless you watch the trailer, then you probably got a pretty good idea. But with Brian Skiba, he's hiring Nick Cage onto his movie. And so he's got no idea. It's like, is he going to read the script and play the character this way? Is he going to play the character this way? And as it turns out, we'll find out in the interview, Nicolas Cage wasn't even playing the character that he wanted him for. He was more interested in a smaller character. And then just kind of asked
the Mandalore part. Is it the Costas Mandalore part? I believe. Yeah.
Costas Mandalore was the mayor, and then Nicolas Cage played
just sort of one of the gunslingers.
Yeah.
Reformed gunslingers who's now a man of faith.
Yeah. So basically just asked him
like this. He talks like
there's a bunch of guys with guns coming on. But I was kind of asking him what Nicolas Cage's process was like, and at what point he knew he was going to get Crazy Cage or Reserve Cage. And so that was kind of a interesting thing, among other things.
What did you interview Brian Skiba for previously? Do you remember what movie was it for? Clear Cut, or was it for something else?
Yeah, it was for Clear Cut.
Okay.
Because if I remember correctly, it had a different name on IMDb at the time.
Okay.
But when it came out, I think it was called Clear Cut.
Are those the only two Skiba films that you've seen?
You saw... What do you see?
Dead Man's Hand. I saw that.
Dead Man's Hand and Guns of Redemption. I haven't seen either one of those.
You need to see those movies, man.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. You're going to love Dead Man's Hand.
Clear Cut I wasn't as high on, but I did like Gunslingers quite a bit, and I'm looking forward to seeing Guns of Redemption and Dead Man's Hand. That was a Walter Hill movie, wasn't it? Didn't he have a movie?
Dead Man's Hand? Well, that's interesting. It sounds like a Walter Hill movie. I think...
It was one of the last Walter Hill movies that came out.
Okay, so this is what happens. Yes, Eric, I forgot what the movie was called, but it was what's it called? Dead Man's Hand? Look it up.
I'll look it up. I think I'm right.
No, Dollar for the Dead. I did not look at IMDb, but I think it's called Dollar for the Dead. You're mixing up the two because Walter Hill was a co-creator of that series Deadwood, and then he did Dollar for the Dead. They're both dead. And then we talked about Dead Man's Hand. But the one thing I will pitch you, not like you have time on a weekly basis due to our schedule on Cinematics.
Dead for $1. You know what I mix it up with? I think
Deadwood.
No,
that's Walter Hill too.
In the trailer or in the movie, Willem Dafoe had a line something about Dead Man's Hand. I think.
Oh, very good.
I think that's what it was.
That's a movie that I think all of us were mixed on. That Walter Hill film. Me, you, and Bruce, we were mixed on that movie. But I recently watched parts of it on Paramount Plus maybe months ago. I went a little bit too hard on that one. It's not a bad movie. It's just compared to like The Long Riders or Southern Comfort.
Walter Hill sets a high bar for himself.
That's true. Well, I will say this before we move on to the Brian Skiba interview. Dead Man's Hand, my pitch to you is the main protagonist is Jack Kilmer, the son of Val Kilmer. Part of Dead Man's Hand.
Rest in peace, by the way.
Rest in peace to Val Kilmer. Okay, and so Jack Kilmer, his son, is the main guy in Dead Man's Hand. Also, starring in that movie is Steven Dorff and Cole Hauser, and they go at it. So I don't know, that might be a movie down the road that you might want to see. The other one is Guns of Redemption, which you love. Who do you love? That guy from Starship Troopers, Casper Van Dien. We all love Casper Van Dien.
Yes.
And it's Casper Van Dien, Sean Astin, Casper Van Dien ultimately versus Jeff Fahey. So these are one. Look. Not your fault, because you have to see other movies every week, right? You would have seen them by now if you didn't have Cinemax. I'm assuming, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Probably 3 or 4 times.
So anything you want to say before we get into our I think, what should we run first? Should we run our review of Gunslingers? Let's do our interview with Brian Skiba. You want to Okay, so we're gonna run right now our Eric's interview with Brian Skiba. You want to say a couple of things beforehand, or is that pops to your head before we
Uh,
run the?
I mean, I kind of say it in the interview. Yeah,
Okay,
we talk about Nicolas Cage, we talk about Westerns, and yeah,
okay.
here you go.
It,
My interview with Brian Skiba.
yes, check that out, and then after that will be our review of Gunslingers, and then please still stay on for this episode because we have more to come from Eric Holmes.
All right, I'm here with Brian Skiba, writer and director of Gunslingers. Hey, Brian, how you doing today?
Good, Eric. How you doing?
Oh, not bad. So, yeah, I guess we'll just start with just kind of Westerns in general. Like Westerns, kind of like I mean, horror's definitely never really gone away, but Westerns kind of ebb and flow, throughout the decades. What's kind of your thoughts just on Westerns in general?
No, I 100% agree. I mean, I think, I think a lot of the movie genres ebb and flow. I think that's just kind of how it goes. Is people get a thirst for something, and so it hits again. I mean, I think we're right in the middle of slasherville again. I think slashers are back again. With Terrifier. I think westerns are back right now because of Taylor. I think westerns are in the are waning. I think we're in the waning moon of westerns. I feel like it's going to be, I feel like it's going to die back down again, probably sometime later this year, early next year. We'll see westerns kind of phase out for a minute. But we could be wrong. Horizon's supposed to hit again, so if that hits big, westerns could resurgence. But I think it'll always be there, just because there always is a fan base. All these genres have a fan base, but it's the other base. It's kind of like the independent political party that kind of floats around and then lends itself to a genre as time goes, and that's how you get these waves, so to say. And I feel like westerns is this is the right time to hit the wave for sure.
What do you think is it about Westerns that kind of pull people in? And is it, you said it's waning, but there's going to be something to pull in. What do you think it is that we all love about Westerns?
I think westerns in general are it's the mystique. It's the fact that women wear beautiful big dresses and men walk around with six shooters strapped to them. I mean, it's the fact that it wasn't, this isn't fiction. This isn't a time period. It's definitely not Game of Thrones. It's definitely not it still has this kind of like fantasy aspect to it, but it was real. It was a real time in American history and the world history, and and so it's got this mystique about it that I think people still kind of enjoy. I mean, just like people enjoy swords and sandals movies. It's the same type, kind of thing where it's like it was a really cool time in our history, and to look back on it and enjoy stories from it is I think people love it.
Yeah. And you got a great cast in this. Obviously, love Stephen Dorff and everything. Heather Graham, Costas Mandylor, love both the Mandylor brothers. And you got Nicolas Cage in here. And so Nicolas Cage, like you seem to get two flavors with him. You either get the reserved Nicolas Cage as you see him leaving Las Vegas, and then you get the unhinged Nick Cage that you would see in Mandy. This one kind of leans more towards the not unhinged Cage, but more towards that. What's kind of been your experience with them, like before you start shooting? Like, do you know which one you're getting, or do you just once the cameras roll, you just cross your fingers and go, we'll see how this turns out?
It was interesting because we actually offered him the more reserved role initially. We offered him Costas's role, the mayor. Thought, okay, this is a more this is an easier role for somebody to step in and out of, and after he read the script, I got a phone call from him, and he's like, "No, I want to play Ben. I want to play this unhinged gunslinger that has found God and is fully committed. He's either a really really bad guy or he's Jesus. And there's no in between. And so I think once we started talking about that, I knew what I was going to get. I was going to get Crazy Cage, and so it was like. And that's an endearing term because it really is like, he comes in so committed and so like just putting it all out there, and that's what he did, and I couldn't be more appreciative as a director, and for somebody, and so he cares about his craft, he cares about the film, and he gave us 110% and a memorable character, something that Cage fans haven't seen before out of him.
So when you found out you were getting Crazy Cage, just inside you go, yes.
Yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. I went to his trailer the morning of, and he had the whole the whole wardrobe on, and we had spent a couple of weeks, designing the wardrobe. He picked the hat. He wanted to do something crazy with sunglasses, and we talked about different shapes, and we finally came up with the cross, and then, we were sending him his wardrobe, and but finally when he had the whole wardrobe on in his dressing room, he looks at me and he's like, I need to do something with my voice. He's like, and he started pitching me voice things. And I was, like you said, on the inside, I was like, yes, he's in this. He's really in it. And so it was awesome, man.
So taking off your director's hat for a minute, putting on your writer's hat, when you wrote this, I'm sure Nicolas Cage especially, like that wasn't the voice or the character you had in your head when you're writing it that became that. And not just with Nicolas Cage, but like with any other actor coming in and reading lines that you wrote. What's that like, kind of watching your words kind of transfer, like same words, but it's not quite how I thought it would go. And maybe a lot of times it becomes better than what I thought.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it definitely is. When it's funny when I write restaurants, all the male lines, I read all my lines out loud. It's like a Sorkin type, I learned that from watching Sorkin. But it's like, so I sit down and I perform the lines, and everything I do, it sounds like Clint Eastwood. But it's like, but then when I find when we do get the cast in, I sit with them and I always go, let's, don't rewrite my script, but let's make these lines yours. Let's make them your characters. And so we start talking about ways to deliver the line. Do we need to change a word or two to make it fit the character better, or the actor, and so we go through that kind of process. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely, it's a team sport, it's a team sport, definitely.
Yeah. And last time I had you on, I had you give us a recommendation. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was Big Trouble in Little China. With this one, I want to get another recommendation from you, but what's a good double feature for Gunslinger?
I would say, Peace Hotel. It's a old Django Chinese film, that was not old, but it was in the 80s. And, it's a great flick, some inspiration definitely for me. And, so check it out.
Yeah. And what is about that movie that kind of gets you going?
It's similar in the fact of a gunslinger on the run and looking for peace, and I think that's why, because it has those kind of similar themes about it. So
Well, Gunslingers will be in theaters and on demand and digital April 11th. Go see it in theaters if you can. But yeah, this was a incredibly fun Western. I suppose Westerns may be waning, but they're not gone yet. Just hang on to the good ones when when you can.
yeah, for sure. No, I agree. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Hey everyone, look, this is CinemAddicts. This is a review for Gunslingers. Eric and I, when you're listening to CinemAddicts episode 289, this is something we taped a week earlier, so we actually remember the movie. It's sometimes Eric and I, we see a movie really early on, and by the time it gets to the week of review, we don't really, we're old. Our memories, right, Eric? Our memory's not so good sometimes, right? So
who are you?
Where are we? Where are we? Well, I'll tell you where we are.
There's someone in the attic.
Oh no!
How did I get there?
That's bro. We got to be a little bit quiet because I think Bruce Purkey's watching some movies right now for the cinematic. We'll see what that's going on. One of the movies though that Bruce Purkey did not watch for this week, and Eric and I did see, is a movie called Gunslingers. It's directed and written by Brian Skiba. Skiba was interviewed this week by Eric Holmes, so you can actually check out our Cinematics podcast feed for his interview with Brian Skiba. I'm a huge fan of Skiba because he's directed movies like The Second, Guns of Redemption, which I really, really loved. There's another movie, the one that he did with I think it's called Dead Man's Hand. That's another Western.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gunslingers is his third Western. Okay, and Gunslingers, I'm looking at IMDb, it says in a town called Redemption, there's a reformed gunslinger, Thomas Keller, played by Stephen Dorff. Okay, and Stephen Dorff goes into this town of Redemption and he's trying to settle down with these fellow gunslingers in this town. And it's led by this guy named Jericho. And the spiritually, Jericho is played by one of Eric's actor that Eric loves, Costas Mandylor, plays Jericho. He's the leader of the town of the gunslingers in Redemption. What happens though is Thomas Keller's brother, played by Jeremy Kent Jackson, Thomas's brother is Robert Keller. Robert Keller and his men, so they're sort of like a posse, they ride into Jericho and Robert wants his brother, again played by Stephen Dorff, he wants his brother back because several years ago, his brother, again played by Stephen Dorff, he killed a Rockefeller in New York. And because of that, there is a price on Thomas Keller's head. A lot of the movie of Gunslingers, oh, we also have to mention Heather Graham stars in this as Val, a woman who might be involved with the two brothers in her own way. And there's Nicolas Cage. He plays this guy named Ben, and he's one of the more interesting characters. He's one of the members of the Gunslingers. And a lot of this movie is gunslinging and gunplay from Brian Skiba. During my interview with him a couple months ago for Guns of Redemption, which, by the way, Eric, you haven't seen, you should definitely see it one of these days. He mentioned that Gunslingers was one of the toughest movies he had to make, and I'm assuming because of all the logistics of the gunplay in the movie. If you want a lot of gunplay action in Gunslingers, you're going to get to it. But let's get to, right now, Erik Holmes' review of Gunslingers. What did you think of this movie?
Yeah, so Brian Skiba, I think the only other movie of his I saw was Clear Cut. So I did not get the guns in. And Clear Cut had some like cool characters. It's just like a bunch of stuff was kind of wonky in it. It didn't quite work for me. Gunslingers was much better, like by a large margin. The action was better. It got a little convoluted with the plot, but that's fine. Love the characters. Nicolas Cage, don't know what he was doing, but that was fun to watch.
He was talking like this. What is this?
I'm gonna take a picture.
What's going on with your voice, Nicolas Cage? Anyways.
Yeah. But yeah, there was like some, wonky CGI here and there for like people being lit on fire. But I think other times they actually were lit on fire. I think it kind of went back and forth. I'm not sure, but either way, Gunslingers was a lot more fun to watch, a lot better, better put together. And yeah, as far as Westerns go,
it's a fun movie. It's a fun movie. It's just a lot of just gunfire.
Yeah. And now it's not
Unforgiven.
It's not. Well, I was gonna say Old Henry or Place of Bones,
right?
But it's still, this one's still worth your time. I think, especially if you like westerns. Like this will be a good kind of like a, weekend afternoon or whatever. It's like I just want to put something on and kind of just, sit back and enjoy it, relax. This is kind of the medicine for that sort of thing. Put on Gunslingers and sit back and enjoy it.
Yeah, Eric mentioned Place of Bones, which was headlined by Heather Graham and Corin Nemec. Excellent movie, excellent Western. I think it was one of Eric's favorite films from 2024, if I recall.
Yep.
Yeah. Nicolas Cage was in The Old Way. That's a great Western that both Eric and I both really love.
And now this for The Old Way. I think that would be the Gunslingers and Old Way would probably be the better comparison.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I like this one a little better.
Oh, okay. Then The Old Way.
But I do like the Old Way quite a bit. So that's pretty good praise for this one, I think.
Okay, as of this recording, I haven't interviewed him yet, but you're also going to get my interview with Jeremy Kent Jackson. He plays the villain, Robert Keller. Robert Keller has an eye patch in him, and so in a weird way, he's almost a co-lead in this movie because it's brother against brother in Gunslingers. But again, a lot of the movie deals with the Gunslingers who, as they're trying to fight this posse that is coming into the town of Jericho to kill everybody. So,
I mean, Greg.
Yeah.
I think we kind of buried the lead.
Oh, I mean, what's the lead? What's the bearing?
I mean, the main reason why you come to this, Nicolas Cage is great.
Stephen Dorff.
Heather Graham's great. Stephen Dorff in a Western.
Of course.
Come on.
You mentioned Old Henry, yeah, right? Yes. Yeah. Yes, Stephen. We love Stephen.
And I mean, I already mentioned Costas Mandylor. You get Louis Mandylor in there too. That would have been even better, but you didn't. That's fine. You got one of the Mandalores in, so we're good.
Oh, we got look. William McNamara is in this. Look, if you look at William McNamara back in the 90s, Eric, you're going to be surprised at some of the movies of William McNamara you did see back in the day. So that's someone else who's also cool. One of Sylvester Stallone's daughters, Scarlett Rose Stallone, is in this
No,
movie. She has a pretty meaty role. So
I don't. Well, I'm not familiar with her, so I didn't know who she was as I was watching the movie. But I mean, that's so cool.
yeah,
But yeah, this is kind of like now is Stephen Dorff movies go again. Not as good as Old Henry,
yeah,
but this is up
still
there as
fun.
far as like Stephen Dorff movies go. And then
Okay,
this is kind of like a movie I love to see Stephen Dorff in.
yeah,
You know,
yes.
not just a Western, but like the kind of, because like, well, it is a Western, but it's also kind of a cool guy, tough guy movie. And
Hmm.
that's kind of, when I watch Stephen Dorff, I want to watch be a tough, cool guy. Is exactly that, because he can be nothing else because he's that tough and he's that cool.
I'll be honest.
That's why we love him.
Like I said, I'm a Brian Skiba fan. I preferred Dead Man's Hand a little bit more because that was very weird. A weird movie that I thought was very cool, and I also really love Guns of Redemption. That said, Gunslingers is still a solid Western. I enjoyed it. 3.5 stars for Gunslingers for me. Final thoughts, Eric, and your rating on Gunslingers.
I will probably, this has like 3-star banger all over it. I think it's probably a little better than that, but like 3-star banger sounds kind of about where this lives because yeah, there's people like you and me that kind of eat this kind of stuff up,
Oh yeah.
and I'm very aware of the fact that there's other people that hate this kind of thing or they just turn their nose up, and that's fine. But that's why we have 3-star bangers. Like if you're into westerns, if you're into Stephen Dorff, if you want to watch Nicolas Cage play a character who are like, what the hell is he doing? Like this is a movie, and it's not too heady, and it's not like it's a movie you can just sit back, relax, and enjoy.
All right, cool. That is Gunslingers, 3-star banger for Eric Holmes, 2.5 stars for me. And yeah, if you just want a really fun Western, which yeah, I'm looking at the trailer right now, just having a good time watching it. So again, directed and written by Brian Skiba, Gunslingers in theaters, on digital, and on demand Friday, April 11th. Tell us what you think of Gunslingers. Did this Western work for you? Okay, we are back. Our Gunslingers review, we actually banked that. I think we mentioned that in the review a week ago, just so we could get that movie fresh in our head. Just a reminder that Gunslingers is in theaters, digital, and on demand Friday, April 11th. Sometimes Eric Holmes will do a movie that I completely missed out on because I get, I think I still have about 160,000 emails on my Gmail that I can't look at. It's weird. Eric Holmes opened an email that I didn't, for thankfully so, for this movie called That They May Face the Rising Sun. We were pitched a bunch of interviews. Eric got the interview with director Pat Collins. Eric Holmes, what can you tell us first about your interview with Pat Collins and maybe a backdrop of this movie?
Actually, the Pat Collins interview was kind of weird because it started off really casual when when we started, and so it wasn't like we were like, well, like halfway through a conversation. I'm like, oh, by the way, I'm here with the writer director Pat Collins, and then we kind of went through the normal interview stuff. He was a delight to talk to, and talked about. Oh, well, so That They May Face the Rising Sun is based on a novel by John McGarren, and Pat Collins had done a documentary about the writer, and so he's done a documentary. Now he's adapting one of his novels, and kind of talked to him about not just adapting a novel, but adapting a novel that he's of someone that he's intimately familiar with. And so, got some pretty good insight there. And he was just a great guy to talk with.
Okay, well, here is Eric's interview with Pat Collins. Again, well, the release date for this movie, I should have tagged it later in the episode. But anyways, before we get to the interview, it opens in theaters April 11th in New York City at the Quad, but then it's going to open up in wider markets within the ensuing couple weeks. Since then, as of the recording, it has a Rotten Tomatoes rating of 100%. We will get Eric's actual mini review after the interview with Pat Collins, so stay tuned for that. But until then, here is Eric's interview with, what, you want to tag it? He's like, here's my interview with.
Here's my interview with Pat Collins. And just so I know, I get the release date is April 26th. Is that correct?
Well, it's actually getting a release in New York this Friday, and Los Angeles and Boston.
All right.
And then I think it's different cinemas then after that, I think, around the country.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but it's opening up this week in New York, and on the 6th in a cinema called the Quad in
Oh,
Manhattan.
fun. Are you traveling for like a premiere or anything, or?
Yeah, there's a screening on Friday night in the Quad in Manhattan.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm doing a Q&A after that.
All right. Well, I mean, you go through the journey of making a movie, and then you get to do like, this kind of stuff with like interviews and press, and then get to show the movie off. What's it like finally? You're not at the end of the journey yet, but you're kind of getting there. You're at the point where like the movie's done. I get to sit back
Yeah,
and
yeah,
watch people
yeah.
enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean it was released in Ireland last year, so and in the UK. So I did a lot of screenings in Ireland, and it did very well in cinemas in Ireland, and so there was a lot of kind of pretty enthusiastic screenings, and I think that it's getting released maybe in Germany, I think this year, and the USA. So I could probably finished the film in 2022, I think, no, late 2022 or 23, sorry, 23. And so it's a long process. And we began it in 2016, writing the
Okay.
script. So it's a long journey. Yeah.
What was the process of this? Like, I mean, that is, I mean, almost 10 years. That's a pretty long journey. What was the process of writing this? Because this is based on I should start. I'm here with the writer director Pat Collins, that they may face the rising sun, and this is based on a book. And the author, you've done a documentary about the
Yeah,
author,
yeah.
and
I
then
mean,
so
that was
what was
back.
the journey of working with the author and then working on their movie?
Yeah, back in 2004, I started filming a documentary with the writer John McGahern, and he was one of Ireland's, I suppose, best known writers at the time, and that was broadcast in 2006, and he passed away soon after that, actually, and so he'd written a lot, like 3 books of short stories, maybe 5 novels. And out of all the novels that he wrote, I thought that The May Face the Rising Sun was the one that I'd like to adapt. And it was a story that I suppose it maybe was my favorite Irish novel at the time. And I didn't really feel like I was going to, I wasn't sure that I was always working in documentaries. So I wasn't sure I was going to ever make a feature film. But I kind of had this one in the back of my mind. And then around 2015, I decided that I'd do it. So it was coming out of the documentary originally. I suppose my knowledge of John McGahern, or my experience of making the documentary, kind of made me connected to it. And then again, I think my own upbringing in a similar environment kind of connected me with the novel and connected me with the story, and that experience of growing up in that kind of Ireland. And so I kind of wanted to put that on the big screen, really. Yeah.
What's the your process like for adapting a book? Do you just go like page by page and or chapter by
Yeah, I
chapter, or
mean,
like or do you just read the whole thing and just kind of remember it and then just vibe out for during the
yeah, I
screenwriting
mean,
process?
my co-writer was Eamon Little, and what he did first actually was just kind of wrote a big script with every character in it, and the whole story in it, and then that was after the first initial draft. We kind of looked at it and said, okay, we're going to have to lose a couple of characters. We're going to have to drop a couple of the small stories, and then so the first draft really was a refinement of a kind of a draft with everything in it. And then it was just literally trying to chip away at it over 5, 6 drafts, just chip away and try to kind of bring a few new elements to it, but trying to be faithful to the spirit of the book. And that's kind of very important for me, I suppose, maybe because of my relationship with John McGahern, that I wanted to be true to the spirit of the book. And like, it does kind of break your heart to lose some of the characters, but you have to really, they're two different formats, and what works for a film doesn't necessarily work in a book, and vice versa. And somebody described, I think Goddard said that cinema is for words that get stuck in the throat. And I think you kind of, in a way, you have to approach cinema, even though there's a lot of talk in the film. I think the images of nature and time passing and the seasons passing are kind of, I suppose they're like the descriptive passages in the book of nature as well, and time passing, and but you don't need words for them, and I think when you're showing the natural world, especially, I think on cinema, sometimes it can be kind of chocolate box, or it can be too sweet. But I think it's got real kind of texture and real meaning, I think, in people's lives. So it's important to represent it as well, and so it's not all about words. It's kind of about images, and I mean, I was very kind of intent on it being an immersive kind of film that, you're not exactly sure where you are when you begin the movie, but that the longer you go in, spend time with the characters and spend time in that place, it kind of deepens, I think, as it goes on, and you become kind of immersed in it, and you become kind of fond of the characters or whatever, and you spend time with them, and you get a chance to spend time with them, and then your relationship with them deepens as the film progresses, I think.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned some of the stuff that, like, when reading a book, you can do that film can't do. But
Yeah.
in making the film, what's some stuff that you can kind of bring out in film that you can't get from a book?
Well, I think things like one of them is, I suppose, is sound in a way, and it's one of the things that's often forgotten about in cinema. I think, the sound of the natural world, sound of if you go for a walk in the countryside, or if you're working in the fields, or farming, you hear you hear so much that's going on. Now you can describe the sounds, and John McGahern does it actually beautifully, but I think it's very real then when you hear it in the cinema. Like, one of the dangers of cinema is that a character who might be a big presence becomes very dominant in a feature film that's only 2 hours long, and that's one of the characters in the book we had to drop, actually, because sorry, there's somebody actually trying to phone me there. The one of the characters in the book was a big character who was kind of had a very mean streak, and kind of did a lot of damage to people, or other characters in the book, and we just kind of felt in the finish that he is too dominant a character when he's up on the big screen, and you don't ever really forget him, or you don't get the opportunity to kind of get away from him and recover. Almost in the novel, the character is introduced, and you have pages and pages to get away from the character and immerse in something else. But there's something so real about the cinema that it's kind of like a character who's a very big character is going to dominate all of the scenes that happen after. And that's kind of, and that happened throughout the course of the film, actually, as well. Some of the stories that are in the script, they actually become bigger when you see them up on the screen, when you hear them. And sometimes it even surprises yourself, actually, when you get back into the edit and you're editing with character, and certain characters, the way they're embodied by the actors as well, they become these big kind of real presences, and sometimes that takes you by surprise. It's surprising that they do, but it's not everything is in the script. It becomes more real when you see them, when you see the characters.
Is there during any of the process, has there ever been any thought of maybe we just make a 8-hour movie or a mini series or anything like that?
Yeah, it was, in the early days, you're kind of always kind of optimistic in your and you feel like you've got the most amazing thing ever, and you kind of think, oh my God, this would be great, like as an 8-hour movie, or a kind of a series or something. But then you become accustomed to what to just kind of trying to refine it and make it something that's kind of poetic and pure. And I think I don't think the film would have worked as a kind of an 80-minute film. I think it needed that extra little bit of time. I mean, it could have been longer. I think we could have, but again, but I think it's you spend, we were 8 months editing it, and it was about trying to refine it, and like we feel that we kind of, obviously we feel that we made the best film that was out of the material. But I think those kind of characters would be very interesting if you spent a lot of time with them. But then you're going into kind of almost like soap opera, or you're going into kind of something that's very more. I mean, there was a German series called Heimat, made about the 20th century in Germany, which was an amazing series. And that was just a kind of a story of a small community over the course of the 20th century. And it was maybe 10 hours long. And it's one of the best series ever made, actually. And, it's kind of up there with The Sopranos, I think, in terms of it's very different, but it's kind of one of those classics that doesn't get seen as much as it probably should. But again, I love that idea of kind of taking a small place and making something, kind of epic about it. Because I think those small places are important, and I think some of the best work in novels and films are about small places, small stories that are that have kind of a universal resonance. I think, I think everything that happens in a small place can have a universal resonance, and you can tell the story of the 20th century through a small place.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. You touch on it a bit, but like with the TV series, there's like 8, 10, 20 episodes, 8, 10, 20 hours, and people will watch that without batting an eye. But you see a movie that's 20 hours long, it's like, oh, I don't know.
I know, yeah. Well, it's a bit like the Bellatar movies, what I mean, or even the Ceylan, the Turkish filmmaker who makes 3-4 hour films, like Once Upon a Time in Anatolia. I mean, I kind of like that commitment now. I like the commitment of going to the cinema. I think it's very difficult when you're at home in the comfort of your own home to commit to a 4 hour film at 9 o'clock at night because you're watching the clock and you've work in the morning. But I love the commitment that you go when you go to the cinema and you say, okay, this film is 3.5 hours long, but let's do it and let's commit to it. It's kind of a commitment, I think, and that's important. And that's one of the things about cinema, real cinema, I think, is that you have to commit to it and say, okay, this is actually, this is the potential to change me, or this is, this 3 hours spent with these characters is time well spent, and it's going to have an effect on me in the real world. It's not just entertainment; it's something more than that as well, And that's like, I mean, I find that Bellatar films. There's one film called, that's 7 hours long, and and I've never watched it in one sitting, but I'd like to do that someday. It's kind of, there's. I think there's a place for it. I think.
Yeah. But I'd like to get a movie recommendation from you if I can. Something that's like either personal to you or something that you really enjoyed that not a lot of people have seen. Something that's like, that's really good. I wish more people would talk about that.
Yeah, God, it's. I mean, I think in terms of American filmmakers, even though he's very well known, obviously, is Terrence Malick. I mean, I couldn't. He's not an influence in the sense that I think he's too great a filmmaker almost to influence anybody. You could superficially be influenced by him, but the material he's dealing with is so profound. I think I think he's years ahead of most other filmmakers. And so I mean, even though people say that he makes masterpieces, everybody kind of says that he makes flawed masterpieces, but I think they are masterpieces, and I think everybody. I watched him just almost as therapy, almost, So it's kind of I've watched some of his films. I've watched some of his films 10 times maybe, or watched the first 20 minutes of some of his films 10 times. And I think they kind of surpass most cinema that's there at the moment. And I suppose I'd have to talk about maybe Ozu as well, the Japanese filmmaker. I think, I mean, I discovered him quite late in my life, actually, and I was in my 30s before I watched any Ozu film. But it had a profound impact on me, and it was so I'd say Ozu as well. I think it would be worth spending time with, I think.
Well, I sign off on both of those. But Pat, thanks for joining me, and
Erik,
I hope.
thanks very much.
Yeah, I hope everyone gets to check out That They May Face the Rising Sun. And I've not read the book, but the movie has definitely inspired me to go do that and see what other characters didn't quite make it in the cut of this one.
Yeah. No, it's a great novel. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Pat.
All right, Erik. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay, so now Erik Holmes mini review of this movie. Rotten Tomatoes 100%. You obviously liked talking to Pat Collins. All that bias aside, because we are humans, we have biased thoughts. What will people get if they see That They May Face the Rising Sun? Again, very plot summary. Like Erik said, it's based on the acclaimed novel by author John McGahern, and it's an award-winning novel. It's, quote, a vivid evocation of nature, humanity, and life itself, set in a 1980s rural community in Ireland. So that is ultimately the IMDb plot summary of That They May Face to Rising Sun. Again, it's highly praised from critics. Erik, take it away. Tell us about the movie and your mini review of it.
Well, first of all, there's not really a plot to it. It's kind of a vibe out piece, or like the couple moved to Ireland from London, I believe, and it's just them living their life in this area. So you just meet a bunch of characters and hang out with them. It's incredibly slow because like you get like a bunch of like vistas and landscapes and whatnot, and the movie tries to like compare what's the internal emotional stuff going on in the characters with the backdrop of Ireland, if that makes sense.
That is very ambitious to try to do that.
So when I'm watching this, as you can imagine, this is not my movie at all. This is kind of like what's that mountains movie, The Two Mountains?
Oh, right. I love that movie. Yes. Yeah. Oh, but hold on. Sorry, Erik. The lead actors are Barry Ward and Anna Badurki. Okay, go ahead, Erik.
Sort of.
My bad.
I mean, yeah, you could say that they're the lead actors, but it's more of an ensemble, I think, just because they're interacting with so many characters that it doesn't feel, I guess technically they're lead, but it doesn't feel like it. It'd be like saying Mark Wahlberg is the lead of Boogie Nights. Technically he is, but it's more of an ensemble, if that makes sense.
Right.
But yeah, I'm watching this movie and it's not really clicking with me. And the only thing I can think of while watching this is I wish Greg and Bruce was watching this because they would eat this up. Like, this is a Greg movie, this is a Bruce movie through and through.
That's fair.
And then I talked to Pat Collins and kind of got his take on the book and his process of adapting it. And then I went back and watched it again, and then it started clicking a little more. Now I'm not going to say
The Eight Mountains. I love The Eight Mountains so much.
There you go.
Okay, go ahead.
But yeah, the like Eight Mountains is like this is almost like a great comp for that because this is a really good movie. It's just not my kind of movie, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's weird. You gave it another shot then.
Yeah. Because I kind of like basically the first time I was watching it, I was trying to figure it out. Like what's the plot? What's going on? It didn't seem like much is going on. And I'm talking with Pat Collins, and he's kind of describing some of the book, as you probably just heard. And then I was thinking about it after the interview. I'm like, I don't think I was watching the movie properly. I think I was
it's
watching
not fair, though. I mean, you're going to watch it however you're going to watch it,
You are, but, at the same time, like, if you got to review it, it helps to understand where the filmmaker's coming from or what they're, and, a lot of times it's not immediately apparent of what they're going for. Now, that said, still not my kind of movie, but I appreciated more what was going on the second time around than I did the first time. Because the first time I was just like, Greg and Bruce would love this. I'm not liking this at all. And the second time I'll watch it and go, still not my kind of movie, but I think I appreciate it more the second time around.
Erik, so I'm assuming you're going to give it maybe a 3 stars because of
actually, I can't remember what I gave Gunslingers. I know it was earlier in the episode, but for me and you, it was last week when we did this. But I believe I gave Gunslingers a 3-star banger. I think I'm going to give this one a 3-star banger as well, because if this is your type of movie, this is a really good version of this type of movie. If it's not your type of movie, maybe you'll be pulled in a little bit, but I don't know.
When you say type of movie, it's because it's lyrical, it's poetic, that kind of thing, and
you're just basically hanging out with the characters.
Yeah.
Like, because was it Joe and Kate, they're in Ireland and they're interacting with all the characters. And so you're interacting with the characters with them. So like I said, when I first watch it, I'm waiting for like a plot to develop or something, but all you're really doing is hanging out with the characters. And
letting time pass, right? It's sort of,
so the thing I was expecting, the thing I was waiting for to come to fruition never does, because that's not what this movie is. Okay. You're just supposed to hang out with the characters, hang out in the area, get to know them and live with them.
All right. So this is our mini episode for CinemAddicts. So this is we had to do a mini episode because Eric's done a bunch of interviews that I haven't put on the feed yet. Like an idiot. There's at least several. I'm trying to catch up with the wave.
They're all gold except one.
They're all gold except one. Okay. No, I still thought that was gold. But That They May Face the Rising Sun, director Pat Collins. Hopefully you enjoyed that interview. Again, in theaters April 11th, New York City at the Quad. Opens nationwide in the ensuing weeks in April. Gunslingers, again, that interview. Hope you enjoyed the interview with Brian Skiba. That is April. Yes, sorry.
I will repeat myself. You need to watch That They May Face the Rising Sun. This is going to be one you're going to give like 4.5, 5 stars to.
Okay, I will.
I did not grab it. This is a perfect example of the wrong reviewer of cinematics to watch the movie. It'd be like if
Bruce watching Scott
Gunslingers.
Adkins. Okay,
Yeah.
well, okay.
If Bruce saw Gunslingers, he'd be like, oh, I hate this. But me and you watch Gunslingers and are like, ooh, this is awesome. Like that's kind of where we're at here. The wrong person saw this movie. I think you and Bruce definitely need to see That They May Face the Rising Sun.
Correction on Bruce saying I hate this one for Brian Skiba's Gunslingers. The actual, maybe he would say that, but the actual added correction would be, not only do I hate Gunslingers, Bruce is thinking, I hate Erik and Greg for making me watch this. So
Yes.
those are the kind of things that Bruce would say. But basically, Bruce, if you don't know Bruce Perky, he's not into these movies. Erik and I lap up these Brian Skiba type movies, which we really love. And yeah, well, look.
But Greg, watch this one.
I will watch it.
This is going to be one of your top of the year so far.
Oh, okay. Because Erik knows me very well. He knows I love movies like that 2022 release, The Eight Mountains. He knows that year, whenever it was released, Drive My Car was my favorite. Yes. And those movies were definitely not Erik's favorite movies of the year. Let's just say that, to put it bluntly. But I respect that you know that these are good movies, just not your type. Again, 3-banger for That They May Face the Rising Sun. And then also 3-banger as well for Gunslingers in theaters, Gunslingers in theaters, and on digital on demand April 11th. That is it. Final words, Erik Holmes.
No, just Greg, watch this one.
All right, I will watch this one.
Greg, watch this one.
And
you will love this one.
Oh, okay. Most importantly, CinemAddicts listeners, watch. Hopefully, if you watch these movies, hit me and Erik and Bruce up. Tell us what you think of these movies, and hopefully, they give you some good value-added movie watching. Take care, guys.